Relive the electrifying moments in Tennessee football history with the new Best of the Big Orange Home Video Collector Series. Start your collection with Volume 1, The Great Vol Wide Receivers. Watch 60 minutes of spectacular pass plays, acrobatic catches, and up-close interviews with Vol great Stanley Morgan, Larry Sievers, Willie Gault, plus many more. It's the very first volume in a video series on Tennessee football, and it's yours for only $19.99. Now on sale at JCPenney or by dialing 1-800-488-3883.
Hello, I'm Ed Duffy, marketing representative for RC Cola Bottlers in Tennessee. For the second straight year, it's our distinct pleasure to bring the greatest players in Tennessee football history into your living room by way of the Best of the Big Orange Home Video Series. Through our association with your neighborhood Food Lion store, we're proud to present Volume 2 from this special commemorative series entitled The Great Vol Quarterbacks. The tape you're about to see includes those legendary signal callers whose skill, leadership, and big playability are etched in the memory of Vol fans everywhere and now captured forever on home video. On behalf of RC Cola and Diet Right, the official soft drinks of the Tennessee Vols, as well as the 70 Food Lion stores across Tennessee, we invite you to sit back and relive the gutsy heroics of a group of quarterbacks who truly represent the best of the Big Orange.
The University of Tennessee's football tradition started under the guidance of General Robert Neyland. During Neyland's three-decade reign as the head coach of the Volunteers, his single-wing offense was a devastating ball control weapon. Using the precision-driven single wing, the Volunteers rolled up impressive yardage and wins with an offense that stressed bone-crunching blocks and strong running. Tennessee did throw out of the single wing. In fact, Hall of Famer Hank Laricella threw 51 passes in Tennessee's national championship season of 1951. But the single wing was designed to run the football. Teams knew Tennessee's plays, but the Volunteers executed the single wing to perfection, and it was a difficult offense to stop. In 21 years under Neyland, Tennessee won 82% of its games. The single wing allowed Tennessee to control the ball and grind out victory after victory. But the face of college football was changing as the game headed into the 1960s. The wide-open passing game was now the rage for college football. The single wing was called out of date and old-fashioned. In the 1960s, the single wing looked like a Model T compared to the Cadillac T formation. In the mid-60s, Tennessee finally made the change to the passing game, abandoning the single wing. Since then, the Volunteers have taken to the air an impressive and record-shattering style. This is the story of the quarterbacks who have helped make Tennessee football history, and the Volunteers, one of the most exciting offensive teams in college football.
Well, at first, you just want to look and see a guy that wins, a guy that plays hard and competes. Because playing quarterback, you better be a competitor. There's no question about that.
I think it's something that they're born with in a lot of ways. Most of them have the nature about them that just tells you quarterback. They can walk in the room and you get the feeling, hey, this guy's got something to him and something special.
All of a sudden people know your name. People expect things of you, and at times you go out, you can feel people looking at you.
Our quarterbacks are the man.
The fans remember you for, you're one of their guys. You miss football, not playing, but people here, it's always nice to have somebody come to you and say, Jeff, I really enjoyed watching you play. It does, it makes you feel good.
The first Tennessee coach to use the T formation was Bowden Wyatt, although the Tennessee coach really didn't know he was doing it at all. At the end of the 1957 Georgia Tech game, the Tennessee backfield on its own jumped into the T formation, shocking the fans, the press box observers, and the coaching staff. The next game, Tennessee was back in the single wing. In 1963, Jim McDonald was Tennessee's head coach. The growing sentiment was to leave the single wing and go to the T formation. McDonald, an assistant coach under Wyatt, finally made the change to the T formation in a game against Chattanooga. Tennessee fans then knew the days of the dominant single wing were gone.
Maybe Steve Sloan and Steve Spurrier might have had something to do with the fact that here are two outstanding athletes who went on to be quarterbacks at other institutions who are from East Tennessee. who didn't come to the University of Tennessee. Neither one of them would have been very good single-wing tailbacks, and the idea that it gets to be a stigma and you have a hard time recruiting. Many athletes in those days, as we found out early on, were playing quarterback, and there was no place for them to play as they saw themselves at the University of Tennessee. So you were missing a class of athlete in there that we needed to have, and I think that was apparent to many people. We needed to be recruiting that kind of an athlete, and if we were in the T formation, it certainly helped.
In 1964, Doug Dickey, a T formation quarterback from Florida, came to Tennessee as head coach. He brought with him a philosophy to use Tennessee's tradition of running the football and combine it with the forward pass. But the job was to find a quarterback who could throw the football. Tennessee already had a quarterback on campus, a swamp rat.
Well, I am from Savannah, Georgia, and I lived on the water. And growing up in high school, my coach, Lamar Leachman, played here. And he nicknamed me the Swamp Rat because I was about 5 minutes late for practice one day. And he said I was riding a swamp buggy. So I got that name a sophomore in high school, and it's been with me ever since.
Dewey Warren came to Tennessee out of Georgia. He came to Knoxville hoping the Volunteers would switch away from the single wing.
I like this setting, and I like the East Tennessee people. And they were single wing at the time. And I figured maybe one day they might switch over, you know, and then me playing quarterback and linebacker, because that's what I played in high school, I would have an opportunity.
After a 4-5-1 season in Dickey's first year, Tennessee showed marked improvement in 1965. The Volunteers, under the field direction of the Swamp Rat, were getting used to throwing the football. The first game that brought attention to the improvement was a 7-7 tie with Alabama in Birmingham. Tennessee hadn't beaten Alabama since 1960, so the tie with the Tide was a sign of good things to come. Dewey Warren set a record for Tennessee in 1965. He threw a school record 79 times, completing 55% of his attempts. Most of those passes going to Johnny Mills. After the tie with Alabama, Tennessee won 4 of its next 5 games, setting up the season finale with UCLA at the Liberty Bowl in Memphis. It turned out to be one of the wildest, highest-scoring affairs in UT history. Johnny Mills caught 10 more passes in the win.
They still talk about the UCLA game in '65 in Memphis. And I have a video copy of it, and I've shown it quite often. And I've heard probably 200,000 people say they were at the game or they were listening to the game every time it stretches. And you'd be surprised where you, underneath interstates, on lawn tractors or wherever, it was just one of those games that they remember. And the one thing I do remember that day that Mills broke his arm, and I was devastated over that because he'd been catching them all day. I'd been throwing them maybe wild or whatever. You know, he and Severs always seemed to, whatever you throw out there, they could catch. And but you know, it was just a seesaw battle, and the way that UCLA handled themselves, and the way Protho said it was a disgrace to be from Memphis, that even made it more special to beat a team like that. And then Gary Bevan and I became good friends, and it was just a good game to play in and to win.
The 37-34 victory capped off an 8-1-2 season for the Volunteers. If the Tennessee faithful thought Tennessee threw a lot in '65, they hadn't seen anything yet. In 1966, Dewey Warren tripled that total. The pass now very much a part of the Tennessee philosophy. The opener in 1966 was against Auburn in Birmingham. Johnny Mills tied his school record with 10 more catches in the game. Tennessee went on to win 8 games that year, and Dewey Warren shattered all the passing marks, throwing 18 touchdown passes and gaining over 1,700 yards through the air.
Yeah, you know, I didn't even know it. Somebody had told me I was ranked #1 in the nation in passing efficiency back in I think it was '66 maybe. And we cut it loose, and that's what we did best. I think you do what the quarterback can do. And that's any type of coaching. If you got a quarterback can run and run the option, you run the option. If you got one that can throw, throw. If you got receivers, do whatever it takes to win.
Dewey Warren and Johnny Mills knew what it took to win in one of the most remarkable games in SEC history. Against Kentucky, Mills set a UT and SEC record for receiving yards that still stands. 225 yards against the Wildcats as the Volunteers won it 28-19. Dewey Warren started at quarterback for 3 years at Tennessee. He helped lead the Volunteers into the passing age. Along the way, he established career records for yardage touchdown passes, and attempts. They were marks that would stand for years. Dewey Warren is known for helping bring championship football back to Tennessee.
We had some good teams. There were some great players. We did not have no outstanding superstars as they've come along in years. We all played together, and was one thing we wanted to do was win. And we had coaches that was behind us and got us ready. And Dickie had a great staff. That was a great coaching staff we had. And those coaches they were all winners. And we went through some tragedy by losing some coaches, but we pulled together, it made us closer. And we worked for one thing, and that was to win. And I think we only lost maybe five or six games in my 3 years, including the bowls. And we only played 10 ball games, you know. And back then we didn't throw like they throw now. I wish we could have. It'd been a lot of fun.
Dewey Warren's backup was Bubba Weish. He got valuable playing time behind Warren, especially in 1967 when Warren got hurt. So Weish was ready to take over the reins of this growing offensive arsenal. In 1968, Weish established another UT record for most attempts in a season with 237. His most remarkable performance came in a losing effort against Auburn. Trying to lead Tennessee to a come-from-behind victory, Weish put the ball up time after time, 45 times in the game. Tennessee had gone decades without throwing the ball 45 times in a whole season. Weish threw for 338 yards and completed 25 passes against Auburn. It was a remarkable effort, but he would have traded all the completions for a win against the Tigers. Bubba Weish led Tennessee to another 8-win season. In 3 years, Weish threw for 18 touchdown passes and still ranks very high in virtually every Tennessee passing category. As the 1969 season approached, Tennessee turned to another quarterback to pick up where Weish and Warren left off.
Bobby Scott was a very highly recruited athlete. I think it kind of got down to us in Georgia, I believe, or Georgia Tech. And he was, of course, right across the line from Chattanooga in Georgia. And I think Bobby saw an opportunity here to come and to fit into this mix. And I think somewhere had a girlfriend involved in she was coming to Tennessee or whatever. And by the time Bobby got here, she was married to somebody else.
Junior Bobby Scott, a strong-armed, free spirit from Rossville, Georgia, recovered from his heartbreak and came on and won the starting job as Tennessee's quarterback. It was a job he had always wanted.
From about the time, I guess, I was the end of my sophomore year in high school, I had in the back of my mind that the University of Tennessee is where I wanted to play college football. I was, fortunate enough to, be on a team that was a pretty good high school football team, and the coaches from the University of Tennessee were, aware of, us. I had, a chance to go to Georgia, which I visited Georgia. I visited Georgia Tech, and I visited Alabama, Clemson, but none of those were able to, take over that place in my heart that the Big Orange had.
This 1969 Tennessee team was loaded. A brilliant no-name defense led by Jackie Walker, Steve Kiner, and Jack Reynolds.
We didn't have a bunch of big-name guys. We had Kurt Watson, who was, a big name in the state of Tennessee, but not really known nationally. We had Bobby Majors, who, much the same way, the Majors name, the way it's known in the state. But we had a bunch of guys that just loved to play the game and loved to win, and didn't mind paying the price to do that.
That was the strongest asset I think he brought. Not only could he throw the ball quickly with a quick release and hit those short pass routes, but he had a lot of confidence.
Bobby Scott had the ability to get everybody around him to play better, but he also had the ability to be the quarterback at Tennessee. In his first season as a starter, Scott threw for 14 touchdowns. In the Memphis State game, Scott teamed with Lester McLean on an 82-yard touchdown strike, then the longest in UT history. The highlight of the 1969 season, the Tennessee defense, led by Steve Kiner, shut down Alabama. Kiner had 5 sacks, intercepted a pass, caused a fumble, and had 11 tackles as the Volunteers held the tie to only 14 points. Scott and the offense did the rest as Tennessee beat Alabama 41-14.
you know, when you play Alabama, it's got to be, you know, your favorite game. You know, that rivalry, and you know, at that time, and I'm sure it's big now too. But at that time, you know, when you stood in that tunnel, waiting to come out through the tee, and you know, you look over one shoulder, and there's, you know, Steve Kiner, and gritting his teeth and clenching his fist, and you look over the other shoulder, and there's Jack Reynolds and Jackie Walker and all those guys that made Tennessee's defenses at that time. Jamie Rotella made Tennessee's defenses at that time what they were. You know, I mean, you wasn't going to go out there and leave anything on the field. You were going to do everything in your power to win, and that's what we were able to do, and that's what you know, a lot of us are so proud of.
In 1969, Tennessee rolled to an SEC championship and a berth in the Gator Bowl. That Gator Bowl game was the final contest for Doug Dickey as the head coach at Tennessee. Dickey was headed to Florida after the game, and as it turned out, Tennessee met Florida in that Gator Bowl. Bill Battle replaced Doug Dickey as head coach in 1970. Tennessee returned virtually its entire team, including Bobby Scott at quarterback, now a polished senior. The Volunteers got off to a 4-1 start, included in the run a 24-0 victory over Alabama. Scott scored the first touchdown of that game, Tennessee's 4th straight win over the Tide.
Proud of the fact that it never lost to Alabama. There's not too many people that can say that, and that's something that I really, you know, fought hard at the time to achieve, and I look back and it feels good.
That game set up an October 24th matchup with Florida. Doug Dickey's returning to Knoxville as head coach, this time wearing Florida orange. The Gators were bound to stop Tennessee's running attack that day, led by Kurt Watson and Don McCleary. Bobby Scott stepped up with one of his finest performances in an orange shirt. Scott teamed with Joe Thompson on this touchdown strike of 42 yards, and later a touchdown strike from 5 yards out. Bobby Scott was 21 of 38 through the air for the day, a school record 385 yards. Tennessee blistered the Gators 38-7.
There was no way he was going to come back and beat us. We all, you know, dedicated ourselves, and probably as hard and as good a week of practice as I ever had here at the University of Tennessee. And we just, you know, we went out there and just took the ball and took the ball game away from them, and I think, I don't remember the exact score, I think it's something like 38-7 or something. And that was, you know, a real satisfying game, because, you know, one of the things, you know, you see, you've got a task in front of you, and you work hard, and you achieve that goal, and then, you know, that's when you really feel good about, you know, about a win. And you know, Coach Dickey had, you know, decided to go to Florida at that time, and you know, I think everybody, not that we did, you know, were mad or upset or anything like that. You know, it was a decision that he had to make himself, and I think everybody resigned themselves to that fact. But at the same time, you know, he wasn't going to come back in our backyard and whip us, and it was a very satisfying win for us.
Tennessee closed out the 1970 season 11-1. Bobby Scott closed out his UT career, being named the most valuable player in the 1971 Sugar Bowl game. He threw for 288 yards in Tennessee's 34-13 victory over Air Force.
No question. Bobby's a guy that the tougher it got, the tougher he played. And I think you can go back and look at the games that he played in and won. The heart of the competition. I remember the Florida game in 1970, and of course the Sugar Bowl game that he played so exceptionally well, and a lot of other games during the course of the year. But he got in the huddle, and his voice, you know, he was in charge, had a great voice, great cadence. You know, you like to, as a coach, to hear the cadence that's very much in charge, and most of the time you have that. Sometimes you don't, but his voice and his charisma was very, very good.
Bobby Scott was 20-3 as Tennessee's starting quarterback in one of the Volunteers' most successful periods ever.
It's, you know, it's fun here, you know, and I've told a lot of people that, You know, if I'd have gone somewhere else, I think I'd have been disappointed. It was that kind of experience. Not that we had a lot of great players or anything like that, which, you know, we had enough. But you know, you play to win, and that's what, more than anything, that I'd like for those teams to be remembered for is in '69 and '70 as we played to win.
College football changed again in the 1970s. While passing the ball was still important, speed was playing a bigger part. If you had a quarterback who could run, you had a big weapon. And Tennessee had a whiz kid who fit all the criteria. Condredge Holloway electrified fans all over the SEC and the country with his strong arm and his amazing moves and speed. Nicknamed the Artful Dodger, Condredge Holloway not only made things happen on the football field in the early 70s, he also made moves up the record charts.
He was a high school whiz down in Huntsville, Alabama. And every coach in the country was fighting to nail him down. But when the battle was over, his mama said the trail is clear. Son, go with the winner, be a Tennessee Volunteer. So go Holloway, go Volunteer. The Big Orange takes the field, and everyone cheers. John Ward on the radio, play-by-play. Bobby Denton on the big PA, shouting, ooh-wee, give 'em 6. There goes Holloway. You can rush Holloway, you can trap him, but he won't stop. He'll go down the middle, around or over the top. So go Holloway, go Volunteers. The Big Orange takes the field, and everyone cheers. John Ward on the radio, play-by-play. Bobby Denton on the big PA, shouting, ooh-wee, give 'em 6. There goes Holloway. He's shouting, ooh-wee, give 'em 6. There went Holloway.
It's awfully physically demanding on a quarterback to have to keep running around like that.
Well, yeah, but, you know, I guess if you wanted to play baseball back then, that's what you had to do.
Coming out of high school, Condredge Holloway did want to play baseball. In fact, if it was up to him, he never would have played football at Tennessee. Drafted by the Montreal Expos out of high school in Huntsville, Alabama, he was ready to go baseball all the way. But his mother changed that in a big hurry.
My mother made that decision. I was 16 years old and couldn't sign a contract alone, or I would have never been at University of Tennessee. But at the time, it was probably the best decision for me because of everything that was involved during that time. I did have an offer to play at Arizona State, play baseball only, but most of the other scholarship offers that I had wouldn't allow me to play football and baseball. And you know, it was Alabama and Auburn and some of the other schools. And Coach Battle was one of the few guys that said to me up front, no matter what happens, if you establish yourself on the football team, you can play baseball. And he was very willing to do that. Now, you know, he could have been scamming me. I don't know, but he wasn't. But I mean, any coach could have done that. But I have to respect the other coaches that didn't tell me that and not mean it. I mean, Coach Battle meant it, and you know, Coach Bryant meant it when he said, no, you can't.
Freshmen weren't eligible until 1972 to play on the varsity. So Holloway's debut in 1972 came when he was a sophomore against Georgia Tech in Atlanta. A national TV audience and UT fans got their first glimpse of this young lightning bolt. The viewers weren't disappointed. Holloway ran and passed Tennessee to a 34-3 win over the Yellow Jackets. The home opener was the following week against Penn State, the first night game in Neyland Stadium history. The Volunteers roared out to a 21-0 lead against the Nittany Lions. But John Hufnagel rallied Penn State, cutting the lead to 21-14 in the third quarter. Holloway directed a long touchdown drive in the fourth quarter to seal the victory. Haskell Stanback scored to give Tennessee an eventual 28-21 victory. There were plenty of believers in Holloway and his magic now. Holloway and the Volunteers went 10-2 in 1972, finished the year beating LSU and the Astro Bluebonnet Bowl. Holloway was named the most valuable player in the game. When things looked worse, Holloway was at his best. In the 1973 opener against Duke, Holloway rallied the Volunteers from a 17-7 halftime deficit. This 49-yard touchdown run still rates as one of the outstanding efforts in UT history. The winning touchdown in the game was set up by Holloway, who somehow got the ball down to the 1-yard line. Haskell Stanback took it in from there, and Tennessee won 21-17. Condredge Holloway was named as the National Back of the Week for his efforts.
There were a lot of high school All-Americans here, and I wasn't one of them. But, you know, you got to, once it's snapped, you got to play.
The next week, Tennessee traveled to Army, and Holloway found a receiver. Stanley Morgan from Easley, South Carolina, burst onto the scene. He caught touchdown passes of 52 and 29 yards as Tennessee beat Army 37-18. The roll continued the next week. In the rain, Holloway threw 2 touchdown passes as the Volunteers beat Auburn 21-0 and were off to a 3-0 start. Then came a memorable quarterback matchup at the Liberty Bowl in Memphis. David Janes of the Jayhawks of Kansas against Holloway and the Volunteers. Janes riddled the Tennessee defense, completing 35 passes for 394 yards. Kansas led at halftime 21-7. Holloway rallied the Volunteers in the second half, scoring 21 points. But it was Eddie Brown who saved the day, sacrificing himself for the win. He lost his front teeth blocking this Kansas field goal attempt and then stopped James on a 2-point conversion, saving the 28-27 win. After a 5-0 start, Tennessee finished 8-4 and earned a berth in the Gator Bowl. The 1974 opener was against UCLA at Neyland Stadium. The powerful Bruins had John Skara at quarterback and thoughts of winning a national championship. Holloway pulled off the first of many remarkable plays early. On Tennessee's first possession, he found Stanley Morgan behind the UCLA secondary. 74 yards later, Tennessee led 7-0. One of the downsides of a quarterback who runs all the time, they tend to get hurt, and Holloway took his share of beatings. The Bruins knocked the senior quarterback out of the game and into the hospital.
Well, I just had a slight shoulder problem, and they wanted to make sure it wasn't separated, so I had to take a ride to the hospital. A lot of things happened to get me back in the game, and I was just, the ride to the hospital, and believe me, when they went to the hospital, they were going rather fast. It was not a little drive to the hospital. It was like, we got to get you there and get you back. Once I got there and they found out it was no damage and that I couldn't injure myself any further, they asked me if I wanted to play. That was not a good question. I said, yes, I do.
Holloway always wanted to play, and with the Volunteers now down 17-10, he had his work cut out for him. In the fourth quarter, a disheartened Tennessee team received a jolt when number 7 emerged from the dressing room after his trip to the hospital.
Well, when I came out, I thought the game was still going on the field. And my thought was, of course, I don't know if it's the right thought or not, if I run out on the field, we can get penalized for too many men. So I went around. And all of a sudden, these people start cheering. So I'm looking down to see, I thought we'd scored, done something down at the other end. And that wasn't the case. It was, people just got excited a little bit.
What an understatement. Neyland Stadium went crazy. Somehow Holloway was able to play through the pain. He marched Tennessee downfield, 80 yards for a shot to tie the game. He did the final 12 yards himself. It was a 17-17 tie with UCLA. Never has Neyland Stadium seen such dramatics or such a truly remarkable athletic display as the one put on by Condredge Holloway that September evening. The But the pounding was taking its toll on Holloway. Bumps and bruises were accumulating as fast as his passing stats. But Holloway played on, trying to lead Tennessee to a New Year's Day bowl game.
UCLA game, I injured my shoulder and had to go to the hospital. But when I came back, what people don't understand is I injured my knee worse in the last part of that game. And I had a bad arm and one leg. And Coach Battle just, after trying to cope with that for about 6 games, he said, look, you've given enough for the University of Tennessee. You've given your all. I think we're jeopardizing your future career if you continue to play and try to play hurt. And if I would understand, and I will make sure that everybody else at Tennessee understands, if you would like to just, rest up and play baseball. And I kind of laughed at him. I thought he was kidding me. I really did. But he was serious. And I just said, Coach, you got to be joking. I'm not. We've come too far. I mean, I got a bunch of guys. We've been together since freshman. And I'm not going to bow down now. I mean, if I'm not doing the job, we'll get somebody else. But I'm not going to give it up, not this far.
Good thing, because Tennessee needed another Holloway miracle against Clemson in 1974. Holloway accounted for 250 yards of total offense in the game, but the Volunteers needed 2 touchdowns and 2 two-point conversions to win the game, and Holloway delivered both times. Stanley Morgan sprinted 33 yards to make it 21-19. Holloway went for 2 and tied the game at 21. But Clemson scored again. Tennessee had to rally one more time. Morgan again scored to pull Tennessee to within 1 at 28-27. Now a decision. 1 point to tie or 2 points to win. Tennessee went for the win. The Holloway Magic did it again. Tennessee won the game 29-28. Holloway was named as the SEC Player of the Week for his performance. 1974 ended with Tennessee going 7-3-2. The Volunteers beat Maryland in the Liberty Bowl. In 3 years, Condredge Holloway displayed remarkable abilities that never disappointed the crowd or his teammates.
I guess the one thing that I always felt after I got here, and I felt when I left, is that I could always come back. I always felt that I could always come back here, and no matter who was here or who was coaching, that during Tennessee football time, you were one of the guys. You were here, and they accept you no matter what. Because once you become a member of the Orange, I don't think they have any orphans. They keep everybody. They got a big old family, so you can always come home.
Jimmy Streeter was a 3-year starter at Tennessee. With him came memories of the great Condredge Holloway. He was a blend of the elusive speed and a strong throwing arm. Many times, Streeter was the primary offensive weapon from 1977 through 1979. Jimmy Streeter was the leader during the transition period from Bill Battle to Johnny Majors, and it was a tough job. Streeter is one of the few bright spots in a 4-7 year in 1977. He thrilled the crowd in his debut against California, a 27-17 win for Tennessee, and he never let up. As Streeter got better, so did Tennessee. Things improved over the next 2 years. Streeter led the Volunteers to the Bluebonnet Bowl game in 1979. Through the tough times, Streeter's numbers were always good. For his career, he hit on 51% of his passes and threw for 17 career touchdowns. To show his value to the Tennessee team, Streeter led the Volunteers in rushing in 1978, gaining 593 yards. He averaged 4 yards per carry, unheard of for a quarterback. Streeter's also in the passing record book. His 85-yard strike to Anthony Hancock still remains the second longest passing play in Tennessee history. Jimmy Streeter's contributions don't get as much attention as some of the other quarterbacks in Tennessee history because his teams didn't roll up impressive wins. Yet when one looks back at his ability and the excitement he generated, Jimmy Streeter is one of the best to ever wear an orange shirt. In 1981, Tennessee pinned high hopes on a freshman quarterback from Missouri. His name was Alan Cockrell. He turned down a baseball contract out of high school to play both football and baseball at Tennessee. Cockrell didn't earn the starting job right away. In the second of 2 early season losses on the road, Cockrell saw his first action.
We had 2 senior quarterbacks that were ahead of me,
and we just couldn't get anything going offensively. And I think Coach Majors just felt like, well, if we're going to struggle with the senior, then let's struggle with a freshman. And they basically just threw me into the fire. And
responding with savvy beyond his years, he led Tennessee to a dramatic touchdown drive against USC at the Coliseum. Cockrell showed the spirit the coaches were looking for, and he earned the starting nod for the season home opener against Colorado State. Certainly, it was a rare feat for a true freshman.
First time I got really any extensive playing time was the second game of the year against Southern Cal in the Coliseum. I think we were losing 43-7, and I went into the fourth quarter and we managed to score. I think I threw a touchdown pass to Randall Morris to make the score 43-7. But it was quite a thrill, and that day earned me a start the next week against Colorado State. And to that point in time, which was without a doubt my biggest thrill, I finally got to see Neyland Stadium full of people, and that was an unbelievable sight for an 18-year-old freshman kid out of Joplin, Missouri. I remember taking my recruiting visit to Tennessee, and one of their recruiting things that they do is obviously take everybody down to Neyland Stadium, but you couldn't really relate to how big the stadium is until it's full of volunteer fans. So that was most definitely a big thrill.
It was a thrill for Big Orange fans as well. Cockrell ran and passed Tennessee to a 42-0 win over the Rams. It put Tennessee at 1-2 on the year, but gave the team some momentum as Auburn was heading to Neyland Stadium the next week. Then the freshman season came to an abrupt halt on the first possession against the Auburn Tigers.
And when I went down, I knew I was hurt. I didn't know how bad, but I definitely knew I was hurt because I remember my dad always told me, don't ever lay on the field. Don't let them know you're hurt. And I swore to myself I was trying to get up, but I later saw it on film, and I was just laying there. So I definitely was hurt at that time.
Cockrell's season and maybe his career were over.
I never ever thought that I was not going to be able to come back and play football for Tennessee again. I know that the press and maybe they were getting from the doctors, but I never even considered not going through the rehab process and not putting on number 6 again and running through the T. That was something that just never entered my mind. I just felt like if I put my faith in Tim Karen and did all the things that he felt was necessary for me to come back and play, that I would definitely be able to run through the T the next year when we opened up with Duke.
Cockrell's work ethic did get the knee strong again, and he was back in time for the opener in 1982 against Duke. Cockrell was strong and sharp. He had 20 of 25 passes for 239 yards. But the big test loomed on the horizon. All quarterbacks at Tennessee are judged on the third Saturday in October. Tennessee hadn't won against the Alabama Crimson Tide in 11 previous tries, and the 1982 Tide seemed tough as ever. Alabama showed its muscle early. They jumped out to a 14-3 lead. Just when the fans were thinking it would be 12 in a row, Cockrell caught fire. He found the streaking Willie Gault for 52 yards and a score. Cockrell went 18 of 29 for 192 yards and another touchdown strike, this time to Mike Miller.
Threw a touchdown pass to Mike Miller that put us ahead for the first time in the game. And I'll never forget just looking up into the Neyland Stadium, and I think there was 97,000 people that day, and just seeing those people, just that it looked like it was the happiest moment of their life. They had been waiting so long to see Tennessee beat Alabama.
Tennessee opened up a 2-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter against Alabama when Chuck Coleman dashed 34 yards for the score. Coleman had 139 yards rushing on the afternoon against one of the nation's top defenses. But still, Tennessee had to withstand one last Alabama assault. Mike Terry intercepted this Walter Lewis pass in the end zone, and the celebration was on. Alan Cockrell had led Tennessee to an amazing upset of Alabama. The final score, Tennessee won 35-28 over Alabama, ending years of frustration. And there was plenty of joy in Big Orange country to go around.
We ended up winning the thing 35-28, and it was like we had just won a national championship. The goalpost went down, and it was definitely the biggest thrill of my college career.
The Alabama win was definitely the highlight of the year. Tennessee finished the season in the Peach Bowl, and Cockrell finished the year with 12 touchdown passes. 1983 began with the Volunteers posting a 3-2 record. Not a great start, but nobody would mind if Tennessee could pull off an upset over Alabama at Legion Field. Tennessee hadn't beaten the Tide there since 1969. Cockrell's confidence came through from the start. He used the long ball to beat the Tide defense. Lenny Taylor scored the first of Tennessee's touchdowns on this 80-yard strike. Clyde Duncan teamed with Cockrell on 2 touchdowns. The first, 80 yards, and then another of 57 yards. Even with this offensive explosion, Tennessee still trailed 34-31 heading into the final quarter. The big play was turned in by Johnny Jones, and it was a game winner. Johnny Jones went 66 yards for the touchdown, and Tennessee won 41-34. Cockrell and Tennessee had beaten Alabama in back-to-back years. The Alabama game gave Tennessee confidence. The Volunteers went on to a 9-3 season and beat Maryland in the Florida Citrus Bowl. It was the winningest season for Tennessee since 1972. While Cockrell was performing well in football, baseball was still his favorite and best sport. A slugging outfielder, Cockrell was again drafted after a stellar junior season with the Tennessee baseball team. With his senior season of football just around the corner and a contract to play pro baseball in his hand, Cockrell had a decision to make, and he chose baseball.
I can tell you this right now, hindsight's 20/20. If I had to make the decision over again, I definitely would have stayed at Tennessee my senior year. But at the time, I felt it was the right decision for me. I was a first-round pick by the Giants, and I just felt like the time was right for me to make that career decision.
Alan Cockrell will be remembered as a quarterback with tremendous leadership quality. He was a quarterback who fought back after a career-threatening knee injury and was a quarterback who ended over a decade of suffering at the hands of Alabama. He never lost to the Crimson Tide in a game he started.
I think more than anything else, I was proud to be a Volunteer. Playing for that school and that institution was a thrill for me. Having the opportunity to be a part of the great football tradition that is still ongoing there is a big thrill for me. I just hope that I was able to bring a few brighter moments to that tradition.
It's really hard to prove who has the strongest throwing arm of all the quarterbacks in Tennessee history. Tony Robinson, though, will get plenty of votes. The pencil-thin quarterback could make the football whistle as it sailed downfield. His career was cut short by an injury, but he still ranks in the top 10 in all the passing categories. Robinson put on a show when he went back to throw. Tall and eloquent in the pocket, he zinged 23 touchdown passes while only starting a year and a half. Robinson got the 1985 SEC Championship season off to a good start as he riddled UCLA for 387 yards. And another dazzling display against number 1 Auburn. Against the Tigers, Tony showed he had nimble legs as well as a gun for an arm. Unfortunately for Robinson, his knee injury in the Alabama game later in 1985 ended the year for Robinson and proved to be his final game at Tennessee. Tony Robinson will go down as one of the more gifted quarterbacks ever to play for the Volunteers. There's been an old saying at Tennessee for years, those who stay will play. Never has that been more true than with Darrell Dickey. He came to Tennessee in 1980 and was immediately hurt in preseason.
I was running this particular drill and not really realizing who was back there running the football. And the next thing I know, and of course I played under Coach Dickey, and he was back, or was later to be back as the athletic director. But Darrell Dickey runs the football. Somebody tackles him and breaks his leg. And when you don't put a quarterback in a one-on-one drill, I did know that beforehand, and I certainly know it very well now. And it ended up, it was the best thing in the world that ever happened for him. But at the time, I thought I was going to be a very short-term offensive line coach for breaking a quarterback's leg.
He resisted a switch to the secondary, had a medical redshirt and a redshirt year, and in 1985 was a 6th-year senior, but he was still a backup quarterback.
You know, I had accepted my role as being a backup to Tony. The year before, I knew that, I had started a ball game when Tony got hurt, and I knew being around the game as long as you have, and any football player knows if you're a backup, you're one play away from going in. And especially a quarterback, you have a season-ending injury, then you better be prepared. If you're not prepared, somebody behind you is going to come take it over. So I always challenged myself to prepare as a starter and to practice that way during the week in preparation for the games, and also to go in the game as if I was going to be a starter, because you never knew when that play was going to happen that you were going to be thrown out into action. The ironic thing about that ball game that a lot of people don't remember was a play in the second quarter. Tony actually sprained an ankle in the second quarter, and I was asked to go in for one play. I went in, and we had a running play called, and if you saw a particular look in the defense, then you could check to a three-step drop. So I thought, hey, there's the look. I'm going to go to this three-step drop. So I checked off and made the play, and I took my drop, and I threw a pass out in the flat, and it hit Alabama defender right square in the hands. And he dropped the ball, fortunately. If he would have caught the ball, I probably would have never played. But he dropped the ball because it was a sure 6 points if he would have caught the ball. And he dropped the ball, so my career started on an incomplete pass that hit an Alabama defender.
I wasn't going to mention that first pass, but he actually checked off to it, which was your first scare, and threw it out there, and the Alabama guy just kind of, and thank God, goodness, because we ended up winning the football game barely, and but it was a little auspicious start.
But you had to think, oh my, what have I done here?
Yeah, I had a little concern, but he came back and handed it off very well the rest of the ball game, and ended up having a nice finish on his career.
Tennessee survived the play, and Robinson returned, but not for long. Moments later, with Tennessee clinging to a tenuous lead, Robinson lay across the turf of Legion Field with a knee literally torn apart. And again, Tennessee turned to Darrell Dickey. This time, the senior was calm and collected.
Well, no, I was pretty confident about what I was doing and what I had to go do. And, I hope I didn't show any signs of being scared or anything like that. I wasn't scared. I was prepared, and I was ready to go play. And the thing that you're never prepared for in an environment like that is the speed of the game, to go out and I don't care how long you've been around it, until you get in that environment and are actually playing in that, you never prepare yourself for the speed of that game.
This day did not depend on the heroics of a quarterback. There were determined volunteers on both sides of the ball. Tailback Keith Davis logged 141 yards on the ground. But the play of the day, and perhaps the defensive play of the decade, came from linebacker Dale Jones. This incredible interception by Jones helped end Alabama's final touchdown hope. Dickey helped the Volunteers beat Alabama 16-14, and now the Volunteers rode the shoulders of Darrell Dickey for the rest of the season. The Volunteers won 4 games down the stretch, including a finale against Vanderbilt at Neyland Stadium. Tennessee beat the Commodores in front of over 97,000 fans. It was a special moment for Tennessee fans and Darrell Dickey. 16 years earlier, he watched his father bring the SEC title to Knoxville as head coach, and now it was his turn in the spotlight.
Yeah, it was. It was a great feeling. It was a beautiful day, and I had the opportunity to play Vanderbilt for that ball game and to beat them, and what was at stake for our football team, and nobody had expected us to do such a thing, and to put ourselves in that position to go out and do it was probably more pressure than the Sugar Bowl, like I said. And again, we had a very mature football team that was able to get down to business and go make things happen.
This script was almost too good to be true. Former 6th-team quarterback takes over for the All-American and wins the Sugar Bowl. Most everyone expected the Magic to stop against Miami. The Volunteers heavy underdogs as they headed to New Orleans to face the Hurricanes and Vinny Testaverde. While the talk swirled about the Hurricanes' national championship hopes, Tennessee concentrated on the task at hand.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt that we were ready to play, and our preparation had been tremendous, and there was no pressure on our football team. Our football team was really relaxed, and all we could do was just go out and play ball, and that's what we came there to do. I mean, being heavy underdogs, nobody giving us a chance, and the press kind of stayed away from us. They were always with the Miami squad in their preparation, and we were kind of left alone to prepare and to get ourselves ready, and there was no pressure build up on us at all because the press was with the other team and Vinny Testaverde and all his hype, which they deserve. They were a tremendous football team, and we were left alone to prepare and relax. I think our team was a mature team, and we knew how to mix having fun and getting ready for business. And about 3 days before the game, we all buckled down and got our minds ready to go and got prepared and stayed relaxed, and you know, we're able to come out and do what we did. Everywhere you looked, it was all orange, and that would be something that the Vol fans can always be proud of, is that day in New Orleans, because that was probably the best crowd and the most energy I've felt ever from a Tennessee football game, and the fans and how they were involved, and off to a little rocky start, but boy, they were sure into the ball game. And the stories I've heard about the stands are probably more enlightening than the stories I've heard about the ball game. There's a lot of great things happened in that stands, and to be a part of that atmosphere was certainly a tremendous feeling.
When the game started, Tennessee came right at the Canes. Dickey was spectacular. So was Tennessee. The Volunteers had answers for everything the Hurricanes tried. It was a breathtaking scene. The Superdome draped in orange. The Volunteers pounded Miami 35-7. Darrell Dickey hit 15 of 25 passes and earned Most Valuable Player honors. The storybook season for Tennessee and Darrell Dickey was now complete.
No, that was a tremendous dream come true right there. And ironically, I never knew it until I got in the locker room. I was out on the field, and the team had already gone in, and I think I was probably the last guy to come off the field. A great moment I had was me and Tony Robinson walked off the field together, and that was a tremendous moment right there. And I never knew I was MVP until I walked in the locker room, and Coach Majors was just about to finish his post-game talk to the team when the Sugar Bowl representatives walked up and handed me the trophy, and that was a tremendous feeling.
Either you were saying giving it to somebody else or something. What are you giving this to me for?
Yeah.
Did you think you played that well?
No, I didn't, and there are other people that probably played better. I think the award was given to me probably because of the accomplishments our team had done and so forth, and being a focal point of that. I don't consider myself being that focal point of that team. I think it was a tremendous honor, and probably whether it was deserved or not, I'm not sure. But you know, our football team was the MVP of that ball game, and not any particular player. Yeah, it's a great honor, and I'm really glad that I made the choice to come to the University of Tennessee. It's a great tradition and a great football program, and something that I'll always cherish for the rest of my life. And I got my trophy for the Sugar Bowl and got my ring for the championship, so I'm set.
As fate would have it, if Darrell Dickey hadn't broken his leg in 1980, he never would have been around for the 1985 season. It's funny how sometimes things work out for the best. Jeff Francis would agree with that. He went to high school outside Chicago, but the Big Ten schools overlooked him. At 6'5", he had the strength and size, but not the opportunity until Tennessee found him.
Yeah, I did. I followed the Big Ten. When I came out high school, there was about 10 quarterbacks in the state of Illinois that were going to get Division I scholarships. So I didn't get really that heavily recruited. It was kind of by chance I ended up at Tennessee. University of Illinois was going to recruit me. They decided not to. They contacted an old coach that coached there, Walt Harris, who was the offensive coordinator at the time here. Contacted him, told him about me. And this was late in the recruiting years, a little after Christmas. And at the same time, I have an uncle that lives in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And I had made some all-state publications in Illinois. He walked in the recruiting office and said, you know, my nephew is made all-state in Illinois. He's not really getting heavily recruited. You ought to look at him. Well, I guess the same day, Walt Harris calls into he was out on the road, called in the recruiting office, says, what do you know about a kid named Jeff Francis? Bill Higdon, I guess, from the way I understood, his uncle was just here. So that's how the ball got rolling. And it's just funny how things work out, and ended up being a great chance of luck for me. When I really signed my letter, I don't really think I knew what I was getting into, to be quite honest with you. Growing up in Chicago, the Big Ten is what people follow in pro football. You got the Chicago Bears, you got a number of professional sports teams. And when I got here, to Knoxville, the Vols are it. There's no other show in town.
Francis came to Tennessee and redshirted in 1984. Tony Robinson was ahead of him, and he watched and learned. In 1985, Francis waged a battle with Darrell Dickey for the backup job. Dickey was like a coach on the field, and he'd been around the UT system for 6 years, so Francis again had to wait his turn. In 1986, Francis waged a battle with Randy Sanders for the starting job.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a circus at times. And it's kind of unique how some of those things, I mean, I'm still good friends with Randy Sanders, who went into that season battling for the quarterback job. And I look back at some of the things that the media made us do, from putting boxing gloves on. And they tried to create a story. It was two guys going out just competing for a job, and it was, you know, it worked out great for me.
It was only before the first game of the season that fans learned Francis had won his first battle of the season. But 11 more battles lay ahead. In the end, he was truly a fine field general. He ranked 7th nationally in passing, averaging 168 yards per game. Francis didn't make many mistakes. He hit on 64% of his passes.
Well, I mean, I knew I didn't have the strongest arm in the country, but I always felt like I never worried about being able to get the ball to someone and being accurate. I think my strength was you know, learning the system and trying to do what the coaches ask you to do, and you know, get the team, you know, being able to identify when you have a bad play and getting you in a good play. And that's what, I mean, that's the way I was coached, and that's kind of what, you know, has produced on the field. We had a high percentage, you know, offense, and that's what was my job. I felt that was my job, is to do what you were asked to do.
To tell you the type quarterback Jeff Francis was for us is that Jeff was the greatest at preparation that I've ever been around. We were up at Kentucky in a close ball game, and we were in a goal line situation, and Kentucky got into a coverage look that we had seen about 5 years earlier. And then Jeff, in his preparation, had been looking at tapes all the way back that far and had seen this coverage, asked about it, you know, tried to see what they were doing. All of a sudden we get in this game, they pulled something out of their hat from that long ago they haven't run. He sees it, he checks to a play, we score a touchdown.
1987 was frustrating for Francis. An ankle sprain kept him out of 2 games. He did have his moments, though. In a victory against California, Francis hit 11 straight passes and was 21 of 26 for the game. Against Alabama in 1987, he threw for 356 yards. Tennessee capped off the 1987 season with a win over Indiana in the Peach Bowl. Again, Francis threw 2 touchdown passes as the Volunteers beat the Hoosiers 27-22. Tennessee finished the year 10-2-1. A quarterback is tested more when things don't go right. Such was the case in 1988. Things did not go right from the start for the Volunteers, and Francis was really tested. It would have been easy just to write off the year, but Jeff Francis wouldn't let his team quit. Tennessee, with Francis at the helm, put together a 5-game winning streak to finish the 1988 season. Many believe the momentum that Francis helped generate brought prosperity later to the Tennessee football team. Between the middle of the 1988 season through the 1993 season, the Volunteers were 52-11-3, and it all began with that 1988 5-game winning streak. Francis finished his career second all-time in passing. He threw 31 touchdown passes and completed 62% of his throws. He will be remembered for leading Tennessee to a 10-win season in 1987 and his never-say-die attitude displayed in 1988.
The thing I remember is some of the people you played with, some of the people that were coaches there that had a big influence on you. And just, you know, the fact that, you know, football is not an easy game. I mean, it's hard. There's a lot of work that's involved, and not everybody plays it. And for me, I think the greatest thing was I loved playing, and I went to an atmosphere where people love the game. And the University of Tennessee was kind of gives you that stage to do something you really love, and there's no better feeling than that.
Tennessee has had very few homegrown quarterbacks. The one main exception is Andy Kelly from Ray County. Even as a small boy, his goals were set.
Growing up in Tennessee and always been a big Orange fan, I always watched Tennessee football, and you know, ever since as long as I can remember, I always said I was going to go to Tennessee, and I used to tell my grandparents they used to own a motel, and it was really long. The porch was really long, and I used to run up and down the porch, and they used to time me on. They'd have their watches out, and they would time me, and I'd run back, and I'd try to get faster every time. And well, I know that didn't show on the field a lot up here, but but back then I used to be pretty fast for a little kid. But they would ask me like, why are you wanting to get fast? What are you going to do? And every time I'd tell them, I said, I'm going to play quarterback for Tennessee one day.
Kelly had to battle to get his chance to play at Tennessee. He redshirted in 1987 and backed up Jeff Francis in 1988. He then battled Sterling Henton for the starting job in 1989. Henton led Tennessee to one of its biggest wins, a 24-6 victory over UCLA at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. Thanks to Sterling Henton and the Cobb Webb running attack, Tennessee raced out to a 5-0 start in 1989. But against Alabama, things didn't go well that day for Henton, and in came Andy Kelly. The job was his from that point on. Kelly led Tennessee to 6 straight victories and placed himself second in the SEC's passing efficiency ratings. Against LSU, his first start, Kelly was 11 of 17 through the year. At one point, he hit 9 straight passes. The Volunteers finished the regular season 10-1 and headed to the Cotton Bowl as the SEC co-champions. For Kelly, who gained confidence in every game, this was a chance to shine. One bright spot, this 84-yard touchdown throw to Anthony Morgan. Kelly also tossed a 5-yard scoring strike to fullback Greg Amsler. But the big story of this Cotton Bowl was Chuck Webb. He rushed for 250 yards as the Volunteers won their 600th game in history, 31-27 over Arkansas. More importantly, Tennessee had its quarterback of the future in Andy Kelly. 1990 brought another SEC championship to Tennessee. Kelly led an offense that averaged 36 points per game. He shattered passing yardage marks. In the opener against Colorado in the Pigskin Classic, Kelly was 35 of 55, helping Tennessee rally for a 31 all-time. Comebacks were commonplace for Kelly. The Volunteers never felt they were out of a game with Kelly at the controls.
Andy Kelly was in charge. Andy Kelly knew what was going on, and he understood, and so he would know for sure why you were doing something and what to expect on the field, and he was like being in with a coach. I mean, Andy, of course, had been around for a long time and just kept gathering information, and his mind was like a computer. I mean, once you put something at one time, he would retain it, and he was a lot of fun for a football coach. But we'll tell you, don't think Andy Kelly is not a competitor. Andy Kelly, he'll compete. If Tiddlywinks, anything you want to play, Andy Kelly will be there to play. And he's special that way.
In one of the great games at Neyland Stadium, Tennessee tried to rally behind Kelly against Notre Dame. Kelly set school records for attempts and completions. He was 35 of 60 for 399 yards. That was a school record. But the rally fell short. But Kelly knew he would see the Irish again. With Alvin Harper and Carl Pickens in the ranks, Kelly continued to roll up numbers. He was 19 of 23 for 174 yards against Ole Miss. Kelly threw a school record 5 touchdown passes against Kentucky.
If I could just get it close to a lot of those guys, you know, the Pickens, Harper, Morgan, any of those guys, if I get it close to them, you know, more than likely they're going to come down with the ball, and that made my job a lot easier. But, you know, I had to get it close to them in the first place. So, you know, the people that say that, you know, they're right. A lot of times they did make me look good and did make it a lot easier. But I also like to think that a lot of times I made them look good.
Tennessee finished the regular season 8-2 and won its second straight SEC championship under Kelly's direction. Tennessee went to the Sugar Bowl in 1990, matched against the Virginia Cavaliers, and it was going to take another patented Kelly comeback to win. Tennessee trailed 16-3 in the third quarter. Kelly kept his cool and rallied his team for 20 fourth-quarter points. Carl Pickens caught a touchdown pass to pull Tennessee close, and then with 30 seconds left in the game, a decision had to be made.
Everybody was talking. We couldn't decide whether to put our power team in or put the receivers back in and try to throw it. And a lot of conversations were going on back and forth from upstairs, and it was kind of getting hectic. So finally, I stepped in. I said, let's put power in, which means all of our big guys. And we had 30-some-odd seconds left. I said, let me call 2 plays in the huddle. I said, we're going to pound it at them twice. And I said, if we can't get it in, then we don't, you know, it don't matter anyway. If we can't get it in 2 plays from wherever he was, or the 3-yard line or whatever, then, you know, it's not going to matter anyway. So they said, okay. We got in the huddle, and when I stepped in, I could tell everybody was really excited, and everybody was sky high, and I just stepped in huddle. I told everybody, I said, we're going to run, we called it 3 power, which is one of our power plays to the tailback. And I got in the huddle, and I said, guys, we're going to run 3 power. And I said, we're going to run it twice if we have to. I said, but we're going to score on it, and we're going to win this game. And I said, if we don't, then we ain't got no excuse being out here. And I think that, I mean, everybody kind of stepped back just for a split second. Then I could just sense it. Everybody said, he's right. We're going to score. And I think everybody decided in their mind that we're going to score on the first play. We weren't going to have to run it again. But that's one play that I just think as a team, I mean, we were so intense and everybody was so pumped, that there was no way, we weren't going to score on that play.
Tony Thompson scored his 2nd touchdown of the night. The only time in the game Tennessee led. The Volunteers won it 23-22 for their 3rd straight Sugar Bowl win. Andy Kelly established himself as a big-time player, winning Sugar Bowl MVP honors. But the benchmark of Andy Kelly's career is Tennessee's 1991 trip to South Bend to face the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
Well, I think to start with, we go in there the day before the game, and I'm walking along and thinking, with Andy, we're kind of walking the field and looking around the stadium, and I think, boy, this is neat. You can just kind of hear the ghost and feel the tradition. And I said, what do you think, Andy? And I'm telling him all about the Notre Dame tradition. He said, this is a sorry field, Coach. This is terrible. All he was worried about was the playing field. And then
painful memories of the year before came back as the Volunteers were being sideswiped by the ghosts and legends at Notre Dame Stadium. The Volunteers fell behind 21-0 in the first quarter and were about run out of Indiana.
He goes in and he makes a horrible decision on the interception that they returned for a touchdown. And a lot of guys would have gone into the tank. I mean, it was really a bad play, and Andy knew it was a bad play. The thing you had to do with Andy, you didn't have to sit there and tell Andy it was a bad play. You didn't have to jump him. He knew when he had done something wrong, and he got better and better and better as the game went on. We'd been stopped in the 4th quarter at one time on 4th down. We made a 4th down. It never made a difference to Andy. When Andy came back out to fight in battle, he was going to be the same. I think that's why he was a great 2-minute quarterback in any situation. And he held it together, and you just kept coming with him, and good things were going to happen, and they did, obviously, in that game.
But ever-calm Kelly hit Corey Fleming to make it 21-7. At that time, it looked like it was just going to stop the bleeding for a while. But Kelly was confident. Notre Dame countered the Tennessee score with 10 more points as Rick Meyer and his Irish played a near-flawless first half. Notre Dame led it 31-7. But the Notre Dame perfection ended when Darrell Hardy blocked this field goal attempt right before halftime.
Is up, blocked, chasing after the ball. Who comes out of there with it? Tennessee will have possession. They're going to run with the football as it's picked away at the 25 to the 30, to the 35 to the 40, breaks to the outside to the 45 to the 50, to the 45 to the 40. Floyd Miley can fly. Floyd Miley has the ball at the 15, at the 10, at the 5. He has gone all the way. Touchdown.
It was 31-14 at halftime. There was still a huge hill to climb in a place that visitors had trouble winning at all, let alone down 17 at halftime.
In talking with Andy at halftime, he was very poised. He was very cool. We told him exactly where we were going, and we're going to try to get yards in chunks. Their answer had been in the past to blitz when you were moving the football on, particularly certain areas of the field. And he is very much, and was then, like a coach. You're just giving him the second half game plan. Obviously, there were some changes from what we were doing in the first half because of the score of the ball game. But I remember the look in his eye was very determined. Was a look of hey, Coach, we will get this done if we get the ball enough times. And that's just Andy Kelly.
In the second half, it was all Tennessee. Kelly was picture perfect. Notre Dame tried to blitz. They tried 5 and 6 defensive backs. Nothing worked. Kelly picked them apart. He was 24 of 38, 259 yards and 3 touchdowns. Aaron Hayden finally put Tennessee in front in the 4th quarter. Andy Kelly had led his squad to the most remarkable comeback effort in Tennessee history, the most remarkable comeback in Notre Dame Stadium history. Tennessee beat the Irish 35-34.
Well, that's, again, like the championships. I know that's something as I get older and look back on it, that's something that I'm always going to cherish and look back on as one of my greatest memories of playing at Tennessee, without a doubt. But I think that game more than any other, was a game that we stuck to our guns, stuck to what we'd planned to do, and it eventually paid off for us.
During his 3 years as starting quarterback at Tennessee, Kelly led the Volunteers to 2 SEC championships, 3 New Year's Day bowl games, and held every school passing record when he left. Among them, 36 touchdowns, over 6,300 yards in the air, and the longest passing play in UT history, 87 yards to Carl Pickens against Auburn in 1991. He was quiet and soft-spoken off the field, confident and in complete control on the field.
I guess it's poised, but I look at it as a team thing. You know, we were in a lot of situations where teams could fold or teams would, you know, could pack it in and go to the house. But, you know, as a team, we didn't really care what the situation was unless it got into desperate time or desperate, you know, a scoreboard. We really stuck to the game plan as a team, and we were able to work through adversity as a team. And I think that's something, you know, I guess it starts with the quarterback, and it feeds from there. But, you know, that's something I really didn't try to worry about. It was once we got in the game and things started happening, because anything can happen in the game, and usually it did. I think that's one of the key things. The quarterback has to keep a level head, because all the guys, everybody's going to be looking to you for leadership and guidance. And then, you know, I think that's may have been one of my greatest assets, that I was able to keep an even keel, not get too high when we're up or not get too low when we're down. And I think the guys respected that and fed off that, and I think it worked the best for the whole team. I think we were able to, or offense at least, we were able to keep an even keel and not really worry about the game situation, whether we were up or down. We were able to stick to the game plan and what the coaches had told us. And when we did that, that always gave us the best chance to win.
No one wore the orange shirt with as much pride as Ray County's Andy Kelly.
Well, I had a few tears the last time I ran through the tee. You know, like I said, growing up, you know, being a Tennessee fan and being able to come to a few games, sit in the stands and, you know, see the band open up with the tee and, you know, seeing Tennessee race through it, that was something that always gave me goosebumps and always, you know, sent a chill up my spine. And then when I was standing in the tunnel, knowing that this was the last time I was going to do it as a player, I mean, it got to me. I started, you know, I broke down and had a few tears. You know, went up to finally was my turn, and I shook hands with Coach Majors, and, you know, I remember it in one sense, but in another it was just sort of like a blur, you know, because in the back of my mind I knew this was it. This is the last time I'm running through the tee. So, you know, I had a lot of different feelings going on, really emotional at the time, but, you know, doing that, and then when I had my last play, and I stepped out of the huddle, and I heard the crowd roar, and I knew that was my last play in Neyland Stadium. I just got a warm feeling all over. I knew where my parents were sitting at the time. I pointed to my mom and dad and my brother, and you know, that's something that I'll always remember. And I just had a warm feeling all over that day, and especially when I stepped out of the huddle and I heard the crowd. You know, if nothing else, taking all the wins aside, all the SEC championships, you know, put all that aside, that's probably the best feeling that I'd ever had on Neyland Stadium. That's probably the number one thing in my career at Tennessee, was when I stepped out of the huddle and I heard the crowd roar. I guess it made it, you know, all the work and everything worth it.
While Andy Kelly was finishing his brilliant career, there was a young freshman watching in the wings, waiting for his chance. He was Heath Shuler, the pride of Bryson City, North Carolina.
I was getting recruited by Tennessee, and they were playing Notre Dame, and that was the last second. That was the interception right late in the fourth quarter. And at that point in time, I seen 97,000 people watching the game. I just couldn't believe it at that point in time that people would come out and support a university like Tennessee did.
Likewise, the coaches recruiting Shuler couldn't believe what they were seeing either.
Oh, unbelievable. I mean, you know, Heath would compete to do an interview best. I mean, he wanted to be the best at everything he did, and generally he was. You know, you'd have a hard time arguing that he wasn't the best at everything he tried. So he did that in high school the first time I ever went and saw him play in a game. He was the best defensive back on the field. He was the best punter. He was the best punt returner. He was the best quarterback. He was the best everything. He even covered kickoffs. It was just amazing what he did in the ball game, and that's Heath. Well, I had made the statement, which was probably a mistake before he came in here, that he was the best I'd ever seen, which is probably unfair to any incoming freshman, but he really was. I mean, sometimes I have a tendency to be too truthful. After he got here, he didn't disappoint me. I think he probably was more powerful throwing than I ever believed he could be. But he just kept getting better here, and that was what the amazing part. You thought, well, you didn't see the end of it? Well, you hadn't. He just kept getting better and better.
He watched and learned his freshman year. He only threw 4 passes all season. Schuler began the 1992 season battling Jerry Colquitt for the starting quarterback job. Schuler edged Colquitt for the job and got the nod when the Volunteers started the season against Southwestern Louisiana. After a jittery start when Tennessee fell behind 3-0, Schuler got his feet firmly planted and started showing off his rifle arm. Tennessee won it 38-3, and opening night was over for Heath Schuler. But the verdict was still out on this young sophomore quarterback. Was he really as good as advertised? And the answer would come the second week of the season at Georgia. Schuler quickly came of age in front of a national TV audience. This game was tight from the start. Neither team could get a comfortable working margin. Georgia had an outstanding quarterback of their own in Eric Zier, and the Bulldogs also had Garrison Hurst, a future #1 pick in the NFL, and wideout Andre Hastings. That trio staked Georgia to a 17-13 halftime advantage. In the second half, the teams traded touchdowns, but Heath Schuler helped Tennessee build a 10-point lead with 12.5 minutes left to go in the game. The Bulldogs roared back on the legs of Hurst. He sprinted to 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns to rally the Bulldogs to a 31-27 lead. Tennessee was running out of time. The sophomore quarterback had his work cut out for him, and as it turns out, that was good news, because Schuler was always at his best in the clutch.
The story in that game, obviously we both did have butterflies, and Heath with his athletic ability, and we didn't allow him to do a lot of things during the ball game that was a whole bunch of technical stuff, because he was only a sophomore, had not redshirted, really hadn't had just very little experience. First pass he ever threw, it was an interception, and he's still growing. And so he comes with the 4th and whatever it was, 13 or 16 or whatever it was. He comes to the sideline, and of course I'm puckered up quite a lot, and talking to David Cutcliffe on the phone just about what we're going to do to try to go this, or we even had a decision to punt it and possibly try to get the ball back. We hadn't been getting the ball back very effectively, so we decided to go for it. And I told Heath what we were going to do and whatever, and he just smiled, reached around, patted me on the rear end, and said, "Coach, don't worry about it, we're going to get it," and smiled real big. And of course, I said, "David, did you just see what he did to me in front of all these people on national television?" I had seen that from the press box, so at that time I kind of grinned and relaxed myself. So I think he affected a lot of us that way.
But the task was a difficult one. 80 yards and 5 points were between Schuler and the victory. He went to work moving the team down the field against the clock. The drive came down to a critical 4th and 13.
He had 80 yards staring us right in the face, and when I got in the huddle, I always remembered a lot of the things that a quarterback is supposed to be. The leader is supposed to want to push the team, and when all the chips are down, that they're the type person that certainly is going to step in and be the leader and push the team to do their very best and have them relaxed, have them in the game set of mind, and that they can do it regardless of all the odds.
Well, we had a situation where we had 13 yards to pick up, so you knew that you were going to have to throw the ball down the field. Heath, a lot of things we were doing, it was basically a concept you knew he understood at that time as a young quarterback. It's a crossing route. When we got some options underneath, trying to put him in a situation where he had 3 places to go, but they were all straight in front of his vision. And the thing that you can do is the deep guy there, if you've got a strong enough arm, you can go ahead and take a shot at it because you're going to have somebody underneath to control the linebackers. And I knew he'd take a shot. I knew where he'd go with the football. And we had a fast guy, Ron Davis, crossing the middle of the field. I mean, he had no choice but to catch it. If he hadn't have caught it with his hands, it would have stuck right in his chest.
Davis made the catch, and the drive was still alive. Schuler capped it off, taking the ball in for the winning score. It was a stunning comeback, and the nation got its first look at a very special quarterback. Shuler was an option quarterback at Swain County High School in North Carolina. That was obvious when you saw him play at Tennessee. He was fearless with the football. He rushed for 286 yards and scored 11 touchdowns on the ground his sophomore season. He led the SEC in scoring with 68 points. But if he came up to stop his running, his arm quickly made you pay. But Heath Shuler's most unique quality was his ability to get his teammates to play and keep them motivated to give their best. Never were Shuler's leadership abilities tested more than in mid-season 1992. The university had decided there's going to be a change in the head coaching position. Coach Johnny Majors would finish coaching the team the last 5 games of the season, and then Philip Fulmer would become Tennessee's next head coach. It was an emotional, difficult decision, one that, with another quarterback at the helm, might have divided the team.
You're sitting here looking at a sophomore, you know, really hadn't done anything at Tennessee to amount to anything. He had great credentials, but all of a sudden he's in command. And a rookie head coach that's, you know, trying to survive, I guess, as much as anything. And I think the two of us and the staff as a group and the team as a group really bonded during that time. And it was very good for everybody.
But the Volunteers played together the rest of the year as a unit. Philip Fulmer began his head coaching career with the 38-23 win over Boston College in the Hall of Fame Bowl. Shuler threw for 2 touchdowns and ran for 2 more in the game. Big things were expected of Tennessee in 1993. Shuler was back for his junior year, and Tennessee had a lot of the pieces together for a run at the SEC championship. The second week of the season, Georgia came to town. The Bulldogs were overwhelmed by Tennessee's offensive firepower. Tennessee rolled to wins over Duke and Arkansas in the next 2 games, and then a trip on the 3rd Saturday in October gave Tennessee a chance to beat Alabama at Legion Field. It was a classic Tennessee-tied game. Alabama prided itself in its running attack, but Tennessee snuffed that out. The Volunteer offense was able to move the ball on Alabama's heralded defense. Shuler hit Craig Faulkner for 1 score, and then Charlie Garner gave Tennessee the lead with a 73-yard touchdown dash. But a turning point in the game came when Shuler separated his shoulder in the second half. His throwing ability was virtually gone. Tennessee had to make the decision whether to make a change or keep Shuler in the game.
If you've ever been in a situation, all the emphasis that's always put on the Alabama game, I never wanted to give up. And regardless of what it took, I wanted to continue playing the game. I really felt at that time that we could run the ball, in which we did. Charlie had a really long drive in the second half, a really long run, and we had a couple of drives where we just weren't able to punch the ball in. We had a fumble which hurt us, but we had without throwing the ball, we had certainly enough physically up front to overcome all the passing game. If it was 3rd and long, we could certainly run the ball. So I don't think the passing game really hurt us. And as far as my shoulder was concerned, it probably hindered us from throwing the ball, but it also gave us an opportunity to let the clock wind down.
I asked Heath, and I said, Heath, you know, this was on the phone, on the player phone, nobody else listening. I said, you need to let me know. If you can't, you know, we're not going to hurt the football team. You know, can you get it done? And he said, Coach, I can get it done. I need to be in the game. I mean, do you go against that? No, you don't. So
Alabama and Tennessee played a classic. They fought to a 17-17 tie. Shuler had a week off to mend his shoulder following the Alabama game. He kept his team on track for a New Year's Day bowl game, and the Volunteers rolled. Tennessee decimated their final 4 opponents and advanced to the Citrus Bowl game in Orlando. Throughout the season, though, Shuler had to deal with the question, would he come back for his senior season or head to the NFL and miss out on a chance to win the national championship and a Heisman Trophy? After the season was over, Shuler went to New York City, where he finished runner-up for the Heisman Trophy. Then Shuler called a Sunday night press conference to make his announcement about his future. It was one of the best-kept secrets of all time.
And in football, the highest level of competition, the real proving ground, is the NFL. That's why I've decided to move on and declare my eligibility for the 1994 NFL Draft. I want to thank the University of Tennessee, President Johnson, Coach Dickey, Coach Fulmer, Coach Cutcliffe, and the entire coaching staff, and especially my teammates, for allowing me to be a part of such a great program.
Down deep, Tennessee fans understood. On the surface, it was going to be tough, knowing number 21 was gone for good. He was gone too soon for Tennessee fans. Shuler had set records for rushing touchdowns, total yards, and touchdown passes in a career. Heath Shuler was unique, a splendid athlete with all the manners and the leadership to one day run for governor in Tennessee. All quarterbacks are special, but Heath Shuler was extra special.
You know, if there was a record that I wish that a lot of the teammates would remember, is hopefully it's the record that we had fun, and that was the record that we'll look at the most, that we had fun while we played. And that'll be the record that all of us will remember in life, that it won't be who had the most touchdowns, who had the most catches, who had the most yardage. That's not what it's about. It's if we had fun while we were playing.
Each Tennessee quarterback made his mark on UT football history. Each of the quarterbacks at one time were at the top of the passing charts when their playing days were over, only to see somebody else come along like Andy Kelly or Heath Shuler and shatter those marks. Soon, there'll be others come along and break the mark set by Kelly and Shuler. But these athletes, these quarterbacks, these leaders helped establish Tennessee as one of the premier offensive football teams in all of college football. Their accomplishments and heroics have established Tennessee's reputation as wide receiver U and helped set the stage to continue to build on this tradition. So then these Big Orange quarterbacks, with all their unique qualities, each with their own unique contribution to the history and popularity and growth of the University of Tennessee football program, certainly deserve the recognition as the best of the Big Orange.
Well, the first start, let's see, probably was against Ole Miss, I think, in Memphis. I'd played in some games earlier, and Fulton went down the very first play. And I'll never forget it as long as I live. I went running out on the field, and I got in the huddle, and everybody started laughing. And I didn't know what they were laughing about. I was ready to play. I forgot my helmet. We had to call a timeout, and that was the biggest laugh. I mean, that's been with me ever since. We had to call a timeout, and I had to get my helmet. I'd forgot it. They thought I was crazy, but they knew it then.
We were playing Florida, and we were backed up in the end zone. We were on the 3-yard line backed up, and it was raining really hard, and Julia Moran was in the end zone. She was doing the ABC sideline. And I started telling the play, and I noticed, and I looked up at Jeff and half the offensive linemen. They were like nudging each other, and they were right in the middle of the series, and they're like pointing over the sidelines. I turn around and look, and here's Julia Moran. Look, and she just talking in the camera, and the guys are not even focused on what's going on in the game. They're focused on what she's doing and looking at her. So at that point in time, I said, come on, guys, let's get back down to earth. Let's look at the huddle. Let's listen to the play, because it was going to be a pass play, and I certainly didn't want to be dropped back and those guys be paying attention to what was going on the sidelines.
I remember Ray Nettles giving my first welcome to SEC football, get under the center, and he just takes a run and hits me in the mouth. The ball's not snapped or anything. But that was just, see, that's his way of saying hi. That's the kind of guys I had. But, I mean, after that, you know, stand there and let me hit you in the face. You're one of the guys now. That's fine.
Well, one in particular was Georgia this year, and it was early on, and things weren't kind of, you know, we ended up playing well, but we got backed up, and I called a play that sounds like a takeoff. But with the coverage they were running, I was trying to get him to take a chance to go down the middle of the field, kind of a flat throw to Faulkner, or lay the ball off to the back. And he kept him in the huddle, wouldn't call it. And Randy Sanders on the sideline had signaled the play, and you know he gave him kind of the hurry up. And finally he calls the play, and he didn't even look down the field. And so the linebackers read his eyes, and he laid one off to Mose Phillips. Well, at the same time Mose Phillips and the ball gets there, the defensive player from Georgia just destroyed Mose. Well, it was all my fault as it ended up in Heath's eyes. He gave it all to Mose. Mose was mad at Heath a little bit for kind of laying him out. He said, well, it's all Coach Cutcliffe in the play call. We shouldn't have called the play anyway. So,
the thing that really catches my mind, and I'll never forget about the Alabama game, was the speed of the game. I'd played one game before that in '84, but to be in that environment of playing against the University of Alabama and on their stadium, the speed of the game was tremendous. We went in on a third down, I handed a draw play off, and that wasn't any big deal. And they kicked a field goal. Went out the next series, and Walt Harris asked me to take a 5-step drop in the pocket and find somebody to throw the ball to. And about the only thing I remember was the defense beating me back on my 5-step drop. And the speed of the game was just tremendous, and I'll never forget that feeling of trying to set up in the pocket with Alabama rushing, and those guys, the way they were coming. I wasn't looking for a receiver. I was looking for a green spot to throw the ball, and it hit the ground out there about 5 or 6 yards short of wherever it was intended to go, and I felt great about it because I didn't get anybody hurt. We kept the ball, and we were able to punt.
Because if Harry, and this is the kind of guy Harry was. I'll never, Ole Miss, where he played Mississippi State his senior year, and it was like the second game of the season, and I held the ball too long, and Harry's man gave up a sack. And there's no doubt I held the ball too long. It was 3rd and long, held the ball, took a sack, and he was mad. 2 years, actually, after I had graduated, Harry had been in the NFL for quite a while. I'm playing in a golf tournament in Memphis, and Harry shows up. I'm putting on the green. I hear Harry go, "Francis, you cost me a sack against Mississippi State." I'm like, this guy remembered. I started getting nervous.